Good morning still, for a few more minutes anyway, and thanks for coming back in for my slideshow, my presentation. So as many of you probably are aware, I went to the US-Mexico border last November, and I was to take part in a week-long trip visiting the borderlands. Unfortunately, I had a bad fall and ended up in the hospital 3 days, and so I missed the better part of the trip. But I was there for about a day and a half, and I benefited from some slides of my fellow mission trip members, because they made I don't even know what to call it, like a website, an online file of everybody's pictures so I could choose from. So I think maybe, I see one or two more people still coming in. I'll just explain the slide that's up here. Maybe I should just go ahead, right, Kate? All right, I'm going to move aside. So the people on Zoom are just going to see the slides, but you can see me too. So Frontera de Cristo, that is the ministry that we went to visit, and I'll be explaining a bit more about it as we go along. Next slide. That is the border wall, by the way. So the name of the trip was called A Visit to the Borderlands, and it was held from October 31st to November 4th. So I flew from here to Tucson, and they picked us up. That's a picture of the mountains there at Tucson, and drove us to Douglas, Arizona. And I think the next slide is a map. Yes. So you can see on the upper left, I don't know if you'll, no, I don't think I can point to it, but the one that's toward the upper left is Tucson, and then the one that's kind of just in the center is Douglas, Arizona. And just across the border from there is a place called Agua Prieto, which is the Mexican town on the other side of the border. For many years, you just crossed freely back and forth as you wanted to go. But now they have a border control gate there, and this huge big wall that you'll see some pictures of. So the headquarters of Frontera de Cristo, which means border of Christ, is in Douglas, and it's a ministry of the Presbyterian Church USA, but they also have some affiliated ministries on the other side in Mexico, in the town of Agua Prieto, which you'll see in a bit. Next slide. So these are the people we went to visit. Reverend Mark Adams and his wife, Miriam Maldonado. They are Presbyterian mission co-workers. They actually live just across the border in Agua Prieto. He has been with Border Ministry Frontera de Cristo since 1998. He's the U.S. coordinator of this binational ministry, and he partners with their Mexican coordinator, Jochebed Gallegos, and you'll see her photo in a minute, of the National Presbyterian Church of Mexico. So this is a joint ministry between Presbyterian Church USA and National Presbyterian Church of Mexico. His wife Miriam serves as liaison with the Center for Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation and Recuperation. Douglas Prieta Trabaja, that's a ministry where people make handicrafts and other things to sell. And Lirio de los Valles, Lily of the Valley Presbyterian Church in Agua Prieta, which is the congregation that they collaborate most closely with. Next. Okay, so on the left there is Pastor Jochebed Gallegos, and she's from the National Presbyterian Church of Mexico, and is the Mexican coordinator of Frontera de Cristo. So they're in the photo of the people sitting in the fellowship hall there. This is inside of the church, Lirio de los Valles, the Lily of the Valley Presbyterian Church, just across the border in Mexico. And that's where we stayed. At least I stayed there one night. And they have some guest rooms, and like with bunk beds and so on, and restrooms and everything, and a nice big kitchen in the back. So I'm thinking, since I didn't stay the whole week, but I think on Sundays they clear this space out and put the folding chairs, and this is where they worship. So from the left is Miriam Maldonado in the chairs that are seated. Then her husband, Pastor Mark. Then Pastor Hoka, as they call her, Hokabed. And then Gary, who's from South Carolina, who was one of the people on our mission trip there. Okay, next slide. Hoka came and visited me in the hospital. I was so grateful that she did. So this slide shows I don't know, I'll read them out because then maybe the print is a little small. Frontera de Cristo, their motto, we choose welcome, building relationships and understanding across borders. And their different ministries include welcoming border delegations, volunteers, and interns, the Casa de Vida Drug Rehabilitation Center, Dougla Prieta Trabaja, which is a women's cooperative, Agua Prieta Migrant Resource Center, and CAME, C-A-M-E Migrant Shelter, New Hope Community Center and Children's Program. They try to foster good relationships with Border Patrol and local officials. And very important part of their ministry is Café Justo and Fair Trade. And I'll tell you more about that in a few more slides. So those are all of these ministries together, go together to make up the Frontera de Cristo ministry. Next. So the first thing we did after getting there, we had a little bit of an orientation at their headquarters there, which is just kind of in a house in a residential neighborhood. But after we had a little orientation there in Douglas, we went directly to the border. So this is what it looks like on the US side of the border. And that's the wall separating Douglas, Arizona from Agua Prieta, Mexico. And this is Pastor Mark and his wife Miriam telling us a bit about the situation there. Next. So there you can see it goes down a long way. What really astounded me, I had seen photos of this wall before, but I didn't realize it was so covered with razor wire. So I mean, even if somebody were to succeed to getting up to the top, it would be nearly impossible for them to get down on the US side. Next. And we had a devotion while we were there, and this was the scripture from Ephesians 2, verses 14 and 15. For he is our peace, meaning Jesus. In his flesh, he has made both into one and has broken down the dividing wall, that is, the hostility between us, abolishing the law with its commandments and ordinances, that he might create in himself one new humanity in place of the two, thus making peace. So this slide I borrowed from one of my fellow participants because she had put together everything so nicely. On the right, of course, is a view of, they have more than one wall kind of in place. So this is one and then another. Then on the far left are examples of other walls. The one on the top, the Berlin Wall, and the one there below it is the West Bank Wall between Israel and Palestine. But in the middle, this is Pastor Lee. She was the other pastor there who was with me. She's from Minnesota. There was this little dog that you see, and it was just going back and forth between the Mexican and American side. It was so cute. And it was a little stray dog, but at least on the Mexican side, there were some residential houses there, and we saw some people walking dogs. So we thought, well, maybe it belongs to one of those people, or they'll take it in. But some of our group were ready to take it home. Anyway, but I thought, this is so ironic, this little dog, because there are spaces between the slats of the wall that are a few inches wide. And that little dog was just sneaking through, and he'd stay over on the Mexican side for a while, like looking at people going by, and he'd trot down. Then you'd see him, he'd come back through on the US side, and we'd pick him up and pet him and so on. And then he'd go back through, and he'd come back through. I thought it's so ironic. The dog is free to come and go as it wishes, but people are not. Next slide. So here, I juxtapose these two pictures. You can see what the US side looks like on the left. On the Mexican side, they have painted it with murals. Of course, it's downtown, downtown Agua Prieta, and they don't want it to look ugly for, tourists and businesses and whatnot. So they've done a nice job. They painted beautiful murals and planted trees, and that's where the little dog was trotting on the sidewalk. And then it just come through on our side. Next. So this is the Lily of the Valley Presbyterian Church, and they partner with Frontera de Cristo, and that is where we stayed. Next slide. And inside you can see there's the bunk beds. So they had several rooms like this we could stay in. And then there on the left, you see some of the other people on the trip. And the two kids there on the far left, and the little girl in the middle, and then the lady to the far right. She was cooking for us, and those are her two kids that were helping out. Next slide. So here's some of the food we got. This was our breakfast, and that's where we sat. We sat at the table in the back, and then we had some meetings where the chairs are in a circle. And they had hot chocolate, they had coffee, and they had eggs and refried beans and chilaquiles. Anybody know what chilaquiles are? Yeah, so they're a Mexican dish with like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's got tomato sauce and it's got tortillas anyway. Okay, next slide. So we had great hospitality. Okay, one of their big ministries is Café Justo, and it means just coffee. So in English, there's a little bit of a double meaning because it's like, oh, just coffee. That's what it is. It's just coffee, but just also relating to the idea of justice. And there you can see the outside of their cafe, and inside what it looks like. It's a really nice spot. They have internet. They have air conditioning. They have, so I mean, it's on the Mexican border side. So it's a nice place where people like to go get their coffee in the morning, and they might sit there. I saw a guy sitting there with his laptop working, and it's kind of a nice spot for people to go to. Next slide. So there you can see me enjoying my coffee, and that lady's name is Mary. I'm not sure. I think she might be from Texas, but at this point, I can't remember. So some more views of the coffee next, or the cafeteria next. Okay, so here, this goes into what they really do. So the cafeteria where they serve the coffee, that's just kind of the public front of what they're doing. But behind the scenes, they have, I wish I knew the exact number, but they have a large number, I'm thinking like 20 or 30 or 40 coffee growers in the southern state of Chiapas who are growing coffee for this ministry. The coffee is shipped from southern Mexico up to the Agua Prieta, where they roast it. And they package it, and next slide. Then you can see on the bottom right, then they sell it. And they sell it there in the store where I showed you the photos, but you can also order it online. So I don't know if I can try to put that information in the bulletin next week if anybody's interested in ordering it. I thought the coffee was really good that I had there. So that's showing some of the coffee beans on the top, the roasted coffee packaged on the bottom, and then on the left, these are two pastors. Both of them are on the board of directors. And also Reverend Elizabeth Smith came to visit me when I was in the hospital. So that was very nice. Next slide. By the way, there are ministries like this in various parts of Africa too. So this is a good way for coffee farmers to get a fair price for their coffee, because often if they sell it to the larger corporations, they have to sell at a fairly low price. And then the larger corporations are making a lot of money off their coffee that they are not getting. But if in this case, they take it directly from the growers to where it is processed and sold. So a lot more of the profits go to the growers. This enables them to stay at home and not try to come to the US to get a better, salary. They can actually support their families by growing coffee on their own land and they can make a living for themselves without having to uproot themselves and go someplace else. And they're sitting at the table. These are some of the farmers who grow the coffee. And I like this quote, "With Christian love, we can join with those in need to create sustainable economic opportunities within their own homelands so that migration is unnecessary." Next slide. And this lady, Doña Zoraida Santiago, she's credited with having the idea to start this in the first place. She came with her family 20 years ago up to Agua Prieta, or maybe it's probably more like 30 or 40 years ago, and realized that, you know, if they could find a way for them all to stay together in Mexico, it would be better than trying, you know, somebody go here in the US, somebody go here in the US. So she was able to promote her idea and get people to listen. And with her family, they started with their family coffee farm, and then their friend's family coffee farm, their whole village's coffee farms, and now it's spread to 2 or 3 villages in that part of Mexico. Next slide. So back to my trip. So the first morning, the first thing I did was go get coffee at Café Justo. Then we got in the van and we went to Casa de Vida Raúl Garcia, which means House of Life. And it was started by a man named Raúl Garcia, who was a drug addict. I think perhaps he was actually an alcoholic. And he found Christ, and he got off of drugs and alcohol, and he decided to start a place for people who needed help to get off of their addictions. And he named it the Casa de Vida. And it started with just a few people, and now it has about 40 people living there. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but his widow has continued the ministry. And this is one of the ministries that the Frontera de Cristo, Reverend Mark and his wife help with. Next. So here you can see inside. All of this work has been done by people who are in rehab. He hasn't hired anybody from outside except maybe, you know, electrician or plumber if he needed somebody with special skills. But all of the building and paving and everything was done by people living there. And this is part of his philosophy. If people have something to do with their hands, something constructive to do, it will help them overcome their addiction. And on the left-hand side, the lady standing in the middle, that's his widow, and she's running it now. And the person on the right in the kind of grayish-white jacket, that's Miriam Maldonado, the mission co-worker. Next. On the left, you can see part of their kitchen. On the right, the dining room. So their facilities are simple, but quite adequate. Next. These are the people in the kitchen. So the lady wearing the check shirt, she's running the program now. The other 3 are all recovering addicts, and they all work in the kitchen. The guy on the left is a chef. He was a chef at a restaurant, and the other 2 ladies there assist him, and they prepare all of the food for the 40 people that live there. Next. Needless to say, they're also getting good training in commercial cooking. So this could be a job for them when they're able to leave. So then we set off on our big hike. I was very enthusiastic about this. You can see I'm ready to go. And it really only turned out to be about a mile. And it wasn't even that hot that day. It was like in the 70s, really pleasant. So we were walking to the border wall to see it up close. Next. There you see us walking across. In the distance, you can see the border wall there. There was a lot of, I can't think of the name of it, but these plants that had thorns on them. There's a name for them. Anyway, it'll come to me later. Cactus, yeah. There's a particular kind of cactus that's there, but a lot of these thorny plants. And so I don't know, I got this idea. Everybody was like really struggling to get through them. I said, if I can just find myself a stick, I can push them aside as I walk. So So I was able to do that. But I mean, they really were catching on everybody's clothes. I imagine if you were trying to sneak that way in the dark, you would have a lot of trouble. Next. So we had a guide. The guy on the left, his name is Adrian. That's his dog. And he took us right down to where the wall was. Adrian is living at the rehab center. And part of what he does is take people down close to look at the wall. Formerly, before he became a Christian, he was a coyote. You know what coyotes are? Not the animal. He was a person who took people across the wall and into the other side. For money, yes. And he worked with gangs. Gangs are making a lot of money from this trade. And actually, he said, you know, people are watching you right now. We said, oh, the border guards? He said, yes, but also people representing the gangs are watching you. We're like, what? He said, they know who you are, don't worry. They know you're here with the church, and they know you're just here to look, and that's okay. But you're being watched. And we're like, oh my gosh. So the guy who owned the property was a local rancher on the Mexican side, and he allowed us to go back. He allows groups from the Frontera de Cristo to go back on his property. Actually, he came back with us too. So it's kind of a big open secret what's happening there, to be honest. Next slide. So here he was showing us some of the tools that people use to try to get across. We found these ropes. They were just lying on the ground there. And we found this ladder. I don't honestly know how a ladder that size could be of much help when the wall is 30 feet tall. But we found those things lying around. Next. So here's the wall. Now, this looks really impenetrable. But, next slide. Adrian showed us how he got people across. So he shimmied up that wall in like less than a minute. It took him less than a minute to get up there. Now, if you were in really good shape, I think you could do it. However, going under like that, if I had wanted to, I could have done it. And the thing of it is, I can't imagine that the Border Patrol doesn't know that area is there, because it had rained like a week or so before, and you could see up against the wall all of the detritus, you know, the sticks and leaves and twigs and even tree branches had been pushed up against the fence because the water was flowing through the fence. And you can see where the river's leading, and you could see there's this one spot where it's lower. And you could see that people had pushed aside. You could see where the water had come to, and then you could see that people had pushed aside the sticks and branches and stuff that accumulate after a flood. And all he did was just dig a little bit with his hands, and there was a space big enough for people to go through. Now, here's the thing though, and this is why people pay. On the other side, the US government has put motion sensors in the ground. And if you don't know where the motion sensors are, you will trigger them, and they will be there in less than 10 minutes, and they will apprehend you. So people pay somebody who knows, because like I said, the gangs are always watching. They're there with their binoculars. They're watching everything the border guards do, and they make a note where all the motion sensors are placed. It's insane. It's just totally insane. So if you pay one of these gang people to take you, supposedly, they can take you around where the motion sensors are. All right, next slide. It's very dangerous. I mean, to say the least, it's very dangerous. Adrian himself said, and he said he was very sorry, but that he had robbed people. Yeah, I know. Well, this is before he came to Christ. Remember, it's before he decided to give up drugs and alcohol and all that. But he said that's not unusual that happens. So this is a water station. Now, this was not put by Frontera de Cristo. It was put by another group who puts water in areas where they think there might be migrants. This is on the Mexican side. And the owner of the property knows it's there and it's okay with him. He doesn't want people dying of thirst on his property. So this water is put in different locations throughout the desert. I think it's a group called No More Deaths. And my brother actually was working with them before he passed away when he lived in Phoenix. And they had people who would go and place water out in different places so that people wouldn't die of thirst. Next slide. Because they said, you know, I mean, even if you think, well, the people are doing something wrong, and okay, we would say they are because they're not supposed to be entering the US that way, but do they deserve to die of thirst? You know, this is not a crime punishable by death penalty, so this is something to think about. Paul?
I was reading a while back, there are some places in the United States where it's a prosecutable offense to leave water out.
Yes, yeah. And some people from that group have been prosecuted because they were leaving water. I think finally there was a judge who said, look, they're following their religious beliefs to leave this water, which is true, and so they should be allowed to do it with the landowner's permission. So yeah, anyway, that's another discussion. Okay, yeah, Humane Borders is the name of the people who put this out. Okay, next. So after we got back from our hike, we sat down and we had another devotional time and prayer, and each of us had a chance to talk about what we had experienced when we went to see this wall up close. Next slide. Okay, then after that, they took us to the Centro de Recursos para Migrantes, the Resource Center for Migrants. And this is run jointly by the Frontera de Cristo, the Presbyterian organization, and the Catholics. And it's staffed, usually I think by Catholic nuns. I saw 3 of them when I was there. So, and the other place I didn't get to visit, the Centro de Atención al Migrante Exodus, the CAME. So that's another center for migrants. Next slide. So if people are in very bad shape and do not have a place to stay, they could provide them with a place. There are several, this is on the Mexican side. There are several places where people can stay. And you know, sometimes people apply to come into the US and they're turned away immediately. And then there they are, they've spent all their money and they're in a strange place, far away from their family. What do? So this is a place where they could go and get some assistance. Next slide. So the nuns have organized various things for the migrants. Here you could see they have socks, they have looks like Tylenol or something. They've got something for dehydration. They've got, let's see, rain ponchos and lip pomade, needles, like probably needles and thread, razors, toothpaste, toothbrushes, cough drops, and all kinds of things that they might need. So, and they can also provide information like where can you go to get bus tickets back home. The Mexican government will assist with that sometimes, or pay half or whatever. Where can I go to get some food if I'm really hungry? Where can I go to find a place to stay? So they give them orientation like this. Next slide. These are some of the nuns who were staffing that center. So this brings me to the next part. The next thing we did was take part in a prayer vigil at the wall. Next slide. And they've been doing this now for several years and have made these little wooden crosses. So the cross has the person's name on it and the date that either they died or were found. And so this person was found on February 17th back in 2009. And so each of us who was participating in the prayer vigil got one of these crosses to hold. And then we walked in a line, next slide, to where the wall was. And then at a certain time, we held up the crosses. And we prayed for, I mean, it's run by the Catholics, but Presbyterians and all kinds of other people also participate. So I know Presbyterians don't pray for the dead so much, but we prayed for the people who died, for their families, and for peace and a good solution to the people dying at the border. Next slide. So we walked up to this place where there was just like a little park. This is all on the Mexican side. And they had put up a big cross. And here you can see on the left, Pastor Mark and his wife Miriam are taking flowers to put up right there below the cross. And then we had a time of prayer. Next. Okay, so these are some things I didn't get to see. This was a women's cooperative called Dougla Prieta Trabaja, which is Douglas, Agua Prieta, the two towns work. Next slide. And here's the director on the left in the green and purple, and some of the members of the group listening to her tell about the work they do there, and that's Miriam on the right. Next. So these are some of the items they make for sale, you know, sweaters and placemats and hot pads, and there's a kind of a round thing that's to put your tortillas in and keep them warm. I got one of those that somebody sent me. So they learn how to sew, next slide, and how to make different handcrafts that can be sold so they can help to support their families. And I think you'll be familiar with this type of thing from Africa as well. Groups of women who get together, sometimes men also, but it's usually women making things they can sell either to tourists or their neighbors, whatever, for their families to help supplement their income. And then on the left, this was made at a carpentry shop. Next. This is a school of carpentry. So all of these things help people to stay where they are and not have the need to pay money to these gangs and endure this dangerous journey to cross into the US. So this is a big emphasis that they have there at the Frontera de Cristo. At the same time, they offer hospitality and assistance to people in need, especially those who've had difficulty crossing. Maybe they've had to be returned, or for whatever reason that they might be suffering illness or an injury, etc. Next slide. So these are some of the things they're making at the carpentry school there. I think I would buy that, especially if they painted it very nicely. Yeah. Next. So here's another quote I like. We can respond to migration with dehumanizing walls, razor wire, and red tape, or with Christian love. We can join with those in need to create sustainable economic opportunities within their own homelands so that migration is unnecessary. Let us choose love. So next. And where there's love, there is life and hope. Next slide. And I tried to tie it into the sermon today. Blessed are the peacemakers. So there's one more slide, and it summarizes things that I learned. These are things I didn't know before that I learned. So I mean, I knew the wall was there. I knew there are big problems. That I knew. Probably all of us know. So this I learned, that most immigrants would prefer to find good work at home. At least this is what I was told. Most immigrants would like to work for a while in the US, if they do choose to go to the US, maybe for a few months or a year or two, and then they would like to return back home. They would not like to stay permanently in the US, most people, but they now often stay in the US because they know if they leave, they may not be able to get back. It's very difficult for them to return. These are things that people told me when I was there. I definitely learned that gangs are making a lot of money from helping people cross the border, and I put helping in quotes. So this is really increasing criminality, the situation we have now. And then I didn't really realize this, but the problem increased dramatically with NAFTA, which was put into effect in 1994, the North American Free Trade Agreement. I did not know that this put a lot of Mexicans out of work, especially farmers. Apparently it made it easier for US to send agricultural goods into Mexico. And we grow a lot of corn here. And then when we sent corn to Mexico, the price of corn went down, and small corn farmers couldn't make a profit selling their corn anymore, so they didn't have much choice but to try to look for work elsewhere. I did not know this. And then of this also I didn't know. The border fences used to exist only in cities, but now, over the last 10 or 20 years, they've been expanded, and that forces people to cross in the most dangerous areas, such as the desert. So I don't have any big solutions to immigration, not certainly officially as a pastor or officially representing the Presbyterian Church anyway. But I think we need some, like people say, common sense laws to be passed, but that would be maybe a discussion for another time. So I don't know, anybody have questions? And I'm happy that also Alfred is here because he had quite an experience on the border in Texas, and I really would like to hear some from him also. Who has questions? I see Hugh.
Is the border that you visited between Douglas and Agua Prieta, is that relatively new? The actual physical structure, is that relatively new, or has that been there for quite a while?
It's relatively new in the sense that people said when they were younger, like maybe 20 years ago, I think you could cross back and forth fairly freely, maybe by just showing a passport or ID. But what Miriam and her husband and Mark told me is that every time they come back, because they just spent like the summer back in South Carolina with Mark's family, and they just had come back in November when we were getting there, they said, oh, this is new, and this is new, and this is new. So like every time they come back, something has been added, another row or two of razor wire, or like now there's like a double fence, and then they put like a ditch between, and then, I mean, it's like every time they come back, something has been added to that wall.
Were you able to either talk to some border guards or get information on how the border guards actually treat the people that come across?
Yeah, unfortunately, since I was just there like a day and a half, I don't know if the other people, I think there was a point at which they were able to talk to border guards, but I wasn't actually able to. There's a good book you can read written just a few years back called The Line Becomes a River, which is written by a former border guard. And it really gives some very interesting perspective from his point of view. He is American, but of Mexican ancestry, and basically he became a bit disillusioned, and he eventually left the border guard, but he has a lot of things in there from their point of view. It's called The Line Becomes a Border. No, The Line Becomes a River, excuse me. The Line Becomes a River, because in Texas, that's what it does. Other questions? I'm sure they're basically just doing their job. I mean, most people, you do hear sometimes of some, excesses, but I'm sure most people, they're just doing the job they were hired to do. So I don't know, I wouldn't really necessarily blame them. Other questions? Alfred, do you want to say anything just for a minute or two about your experience there? I'm putting you on the spot a little, but yeah, maybe bring the mic over to him. Because Alfred was on the border down in El Paso, correct me if I'm wrong, working with FEMA. So if you want to just tell people a little about what you saw and what the conditions are.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. As Pastor Deb said, I was down on the southwest border, precisely in El Paso. And El Paso lately had become one of the busiest crossing stations on the southwest border. And we went down there because, as she said, I work for FEMA, and we were sent down there because so many migrants were crossing the border every day. And Border Patrol became so overwhelmed, they could no longer be, because they're supposed to be on the border, taking care of the border. But now, because of the many migrants who were crossing, they spent most of their time in the processing center, taking care of the migrants. Mm-hmm. So, Border Patrol sent a distress order to the president that they are unable to do their job. So that is why the president sent letters to all the departments in Homeland Security. So now, FEMA being one of the branches in Homeland Security, we got these letters and we were sent down to the border to assist Border Patrol. So while we were there, we were now in the processing center. This allowed Border Patrol to go to the border to take care of the border. So we also visited the border, and in El Paso, the fence is there, but there are areas where there is no fence. And there's, at these areas, that is where most of the migrants cross. So because of the dry season, the Rio Grande River is very low. The Rio Grande River is very low because that is what separates El Paso from Juarez, which is a town on the other side of the Mexican border. So these migrants now, they will walk along the fence, and then they come to that area where there is no fence, and then they'll cross the Rio Grande River. You can actually cross maybe below your knee. You have children below the ages of 5 who actually cross the Rio Grande River. So when I got there, you know, there was, the government just lifted the Donald Trump era law that required migrants to stay in Mexico, the stay in Mexico policy. So the incoming administration had lifted that law. So people were no longer staying in Mexico. They were coming into El Paso. And when they come, Border Patrol, as you said, they're there to do their job. So all they do is, if you come, the migrants actually don't run away from Border Patrol anymore. Those who run away from Border Patrol are the criminals, like the coyotes and the drug dealers. But those who are just migrants coming to the USA, when they see the patrol cars coming, they come to Border Patrol. So Border Patrol will pick them up, bring them to the processing center. And this processing center where I worked was just like 5 miles away from the border. And when they bring them there, so what we do was, we are divided in different sections. So when they come in, there are some we take of registration to register the migrants who come in. We search them, we register their belongings, and then they pass them down to the next group. The next group takes them now to go to the clinic, where we do them a COVID test to make sure that they are all not infected. After that, they send them to the next group, which is showers. They go to give them showers, they give them clothing, everything. Showers, then from showers, we take them into the detention cells. So a huge, very huge walls where sometimes they have like 400 migrants inside one. Huge. So they are separated. You have males, you have females, and then you have families. And then we have 2 other ones for unaccompanied minors. There was huge, we had like, I think the youngest we saw there was 10 months old, left on the border, so.
Left on the border?
Yeah, unaccompanied minors, so this processing facility is just a 72-hour whole facility. So it's just to process. It is not like an immigration, a long-term immigration detention facility. No, it's just for processing them. And the capacity of this place is supposed to be 1,040, but we had 10,000 people in there. So in addition to these huge cells where we kept the migrants, we have big tents outside, you know, at the foot of, you know, in El Paso there are so many hills. So the detention center is located right at the foot of a hill. So we have these huge tents outside where we house some of the migrants inside. So when you come there, they register you. The difference I saw there was, you know, like each night, we had an average of 1,200 people coming in every night. 1,200 people coming in every night. You have to process these people within 72 hours and let them go. And there's no staff. We don't have enough staff. Because we, from FEMA, we were not doing processing because we are not immigration officers. So we were only there to take care of the migrants, the feeding, and the registration and stuff like that. So that is why you see, you go downtown El Paso. So when you come in there, when they register you, they put your name in the database. If nothing comes up, you are let go. And then there's a system where if you have a sponsor, somebody in the United States, who can act like your sponsor. For instance, we here in California, if somebody comes in, he gives your name like their sponsor, they will communicate with you, and if you confirm that you are the person's sponsor, then they will send that person to you over here in California. So that is what they will do. And then they will send you, they will give you a cell phone with a GPS tracker. So every day you have to call immigration to report yourself until it is the day when you will report to court, when you have your day to go to immigration court. So, but because of the influx of these migrants, so when these migrants are processed, they just carry them in a bus, they drop them downtown El Paso, you go downtown El Paso, they're all over the place, there are tents all over the place. That's why you see the governor of Texas now comes there with a bus, puts them on the bus, and then ships them to wherever he wants to ship them, because they are all over the place. There is no place to keep them. All the shelters are full. All the shelters are full. So while in the shelter, we give them three meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we used to start work at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. in the morning. We start work at 4 a.m. in the morning. And around the detention center, we have these containers, these shipping containers with stuff. We had 36 shipping containers, big shipping containers. And these containers have everything from clothing, shoes, everything that they need. So we come there in the morning, food comes, food is contracted. An outside contractor brings the food. Yes, food comes in, water comes in. And so we get these things and then we take it to the migrants and then we will get requests. So there we have a clinic. We have nurses over there. And then we also have security. There is security, private security. There is social workers who work with the unaccompanied minors. In fact, there are all services over there. Yeah, we have doctors over there, everything over there. So now we sit there and like the unaccompanied minors, when they come in, as soon as you register them, they take them to the social workers. So from there, they take them to a shelter. From there, if they have, some of them come with information on them, the kids. When they come in, they have information on them. That either the information of their auntie who is somewhere or their uncle who is somewhere, then they'll get in contact with that person and then they'll send that kid to that person. But if they don't have any information, they put the kids in the system and they're adopted. Yeah, that is how it works over there. So we actually visited the border station. You know, the Santa Teresa, I saw on the map the Santa Teresa border station is very, very, very active. So those are one of the places where, while I was there, most of the people came from like Venezuela. Like Venezuela, there was a lot of them coming from Venezuela. We had Nicaragua, we had Guatemala, Haiti. Really, I did not see any African. That is the funny, I did not see any African. I don't know, maybe Africans go some other route, but I did not see any African come through that route. There were mostly people from South America. We had many from Haiti, and then we had some Turkish people too. Some Turkish people came through that route. So, as I said, it was just a processing center where they registered the people and then from there.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that was more enlightening than what I had to say. Okay, well, I see our time is passing, and I know there's a game on, so I don't know if we have time for yet one more question quickly, or if we should call it quits here. This is certainly something we as Christians do need to keep informed about and let our elected officials know what we're thinking and if we would like for them to take any action on reforming immigration laws, perhaps. Let's close with a prayer. Our loving God, we are thankful for those who are working on the border, trying to help desperate people who maybe are just looking for a better life for their family, or maybe are escaping really serious and difficult and dangerous situations. Lord, we give thanks for the work that these people are doing, whether the Border Patrol or FEMA or other people who've been called down there. We pray especially for the Ministry of Frontera de Cristo, for Pastor Mark and his wife Miriam and their family, and for Pastor Jochebed and all those at the Lily of the Valley Presbyterian Church who are working together with them. Lord, we just pray you protect them, give them wisdom and guidance. And now we pray you go with us as we return to our homes, and we thank you for the many blessings of our lives. In Christ's name, amen. Thank you so much for spending so much time here this afternoon. I appreciate it.